What's magical about Japan for you? What is it that has this hold on you? That has this, it's constantly a place of inspiration for you. What is it about Japan that's so magical for you?
I would say because I was a quiet child, and very much of an introvert, I was like very much of an observer. And I think the Japanese in general are introverts too. They don't speak. It's more about what you don't say that counts. It's not what you say that counts. And so this aspect of just, you know, feeling, it's more about feeling rather than saying or talking. And so there's something magical and spiritual about that. I think it's just that they live their spirituality in everyday life, the Japanese, like so even the way they eat, you have to eat with mindfully. You don't have to talk much when you're like, they can sit together, two people, without saying much to each other. And they're fine with it. In our part of the world, we would not be fine. We need to
No, we need to be
fill the
loud and
spaces
noisy. Yeah.
completely. So, but to be honest, being growing up there, I always felt like a little bit alien because my parents tried to keep, our culture in our household. But the moment we step out of the house, we're with a lot of foreigners, like Japanese and Chinese, and then my school was an international school, so we had a lot of Europeans, Indians. So there was this, dichotomy. So it wasn't that pleasant growing up. I was very confused. I didn't know where I belonged. It's only after the fact, looking back, how I realized, and really through the work I do, I realized that I actually have been so influenced. So I think a lot of people, when they meet me and they get to know me, they tell me, Nada, you're quite Japanese in your mind. And so I must have really been brought up the Japanese way, without realizing.
Without realizing, subconsciously. Yeah. I think as well,
Subconsciously, yeah.
as children or as teenagers, so much of our influence is from our peers. And we always assume that our parents are so influential, and of course they are. But I think the peers and your environment and what you're exposed to and what you're interacting with has such a massive influence on you, on your way of thinking.
For
And
sure.
in your formative years, I think that's really what matters. And it
Yeah.
seems to be with you that that's really rubbed off.
So what was really important, like was a search for me, was that I just always felt that, I didn't understand why there were so many differences between people. Like, why does this person hate this person? Why? And it was always something that really bugged me. I was like, there must be something in common with everybody, like, and I would just observe and find ways of seeing common elements between people. And I really just found that out like 20 years ago when I started making furniture, because I'm like, always I thought that we had to always make a choice, like I had to be either an Arab or a Japanese, but I couldn't be both. I didn't know that there was an option of
Yeah.
being both.
But I think you only come to that realization with a lot of time. I think
Probably.
everyone has that moment of massive confusion where you try and be one or the other, and then you realize actually you can be both. And maybe in
Yeah.
Japan you're more Lebanese, and in Lebanon you're more Japanese. You're
True.
you're
Yeah.
always more of the
Yeah.
other in the other place. It's
That's so
strange.
true. That's so
It's
true.
strange.
Yeah.
So you were
So
in
yeah.
Japan until what age, Nada?
So until like 17, 18, until I went to university. And then, so my parents first sent me to Lebanon, to AUB, and it was really during a war. And they didn't want to keep me in Japan. They're a little conservative. They got worried that I'll marry a Japanese man. and then, and
They
they didn't
didn't.
want me to go to, yeah, they didn't want me to go to America because, America is all about sex and drugs.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I ended
All
up,
the
they're like,
stereotypes.
yeah, and then they're like, okay, go back to Beirut, maybe you'll meet a husband or something.
Yeah,
So they learned their lesson after me,
yeah, yeah,
to with my brothers and sisters. So
yeah,
my brothers and sisters were a little bit more free in their
yeah,
options and
yeah,
choices. But
yeah.
yeah.
So you
So
you were AUB, and you did meet a husband at AUB in the end?
I did meet a husband at the end, so I chose the one person that they would probably rebel against the most.
Oh, really? How
I was
funny.
rebelling. I was rebelling, I think,
And so you, just to get the trajectory correct, you graduated and you got married right after college, Nada, is that right?
Yeah, so I graduated with a business degree, and I was not happy with the business degree. So finally, I pleased my parents with that, the business administration. Then I moved to study at the Rhode Island School of Design. And my ex-husband was studying at Columbia University at the time. So it was like we were dating. So I was closer to him
Oh, so you were not yet
there.
married when you went to RISD. You
Not
were still
yet.
a student.
No.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So I did a second degree there. But I have a Bachelor of Business Administration. Then I
Yeah.
got 2 more degrees at RISD,
Well,
more bachelors.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, you know that, but for the people who don't know, who are listening, the Rhode Island School of Design is one of the best design schools in the world, and it's
Yeah.
incredible, very prestigious school.
Yes.
So
It
you
is
then
in a way
you did
like,
two BAs
yeah.
then there as well, Nada?
So I did a Bachelor of Fine Art and a Bachelor of Interior Architecture.
I see.
And really, it was like, I feel like it was like the passport to the world. It's like when you go to Harvard, like
Yeah,
when you tell people you went to Harvard or any Ivy League, suddenly people look at you in a
of
different way.
course, of course,
And in
yeah.
a way, RISD has that approach, but not only in the name, but really what they taught us,
Hmm.
I think, about conceptual thinking, the bigger picture. I think that was like such an important lesson.
So after RISD, you stayed in the US a bit, or you moved to
I
London right
stayed,
away?
yeah, I stayed in the US. So my ex-husband went on to study at Cornell to do his PhD at the Cornell University. And so I moved to Ithaca. We got married then. So
Ithaca.
after I graduated, yeah,
Yeah.
Ithaca. So I moved to Ithaca, New York for 3 years, upstate New York.
That's pretty hardcore,
And
Nada.
it's hardcore, yeah.
Yeah,
And I did
yeah.
not work. I worked for an architectural firm in Ithaca, and it's very rare in Ithaca, New York. You're either with Cornell University or Ithaca College, or you're not.
Yeah.
And the not part is like just the village people, kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the architectural firm I worked with were really like very, very local, Ithaca people that I worked in, and they
But
hired me.
as a first job, I guess it's not bad to be in something relatively mundane just to learn the ropes.
Yeah, no, it was really amazing. And the
Yeah.
thing is, because I came from RISD, which was rare for them to get someone coming from RISD, they're like, okay, Nada, maybe you can open an interior design department. And at that time, I was so shy, I couldn't even pick up a phone to call a rep. But I would sit hours in front of the phone, holding the phone, and like, ready? It's nothing. It's just a phone call. You just say hello. So I did learn, and I learned, I learned the culture, the American culture, and it was funny because then there's this whole Cornell world. So I was in between
Yeah.
the Ithaca world, the
Yeah.
real. It's a small city. And then after that, I just felt like staying in Ithaca. So Ithaca, it's a very progressive place, and it's really the little apple. You had there the farmers market, and there was this real spiritual movement also going on there. I got kind of scared, I wasn't into that kind of stuff. People were wearing togas, white togas, and then I thought, if I stay too long in America, maybe, I'll lose track of my identity. So I told my ex, I think maybe we should move to London, and his parents lived there. So I thought, at least maybe I can get together with an Arab community who speak English. And so we moved to London after he graduated. And, but unfortunately in London, I had applied for this American interior design. I got a license to do interior design. It was the first license that they ever had. And I passed the test, and I was so proud. And I decided I wanted to work for a big American interior design firm. And there were a lot in London in the late 80s, early 90s, yeah. And the time we moved to London, there was a huge recession, and all these American firms were laying off people. They were closing their companies. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do with this license? I have this this license and I can't do anything about it. And meanwhile, I've always liked, I was in Ithaca. I had, on the weekends, I was making furniture because I didn't like what I saw. So I was making and designing furniture and making them for my house. And I thought maybe I can just make some furniture for my apartment in London. So I started to go around looking for furniture. And what I noticed that furniture in London at that time in the 90s was mostly antiques. There wasn't that much contemporary. And so I'm like, wait, where do I get furniture? So I started to design my own. And I met a woodworker, a young man who was quite, amazing. So whatever I drew, he made for me. And then, but what was interesting about London is that everywhere I go, wherever I wanted to buy furniture, the salespeople will always talk about the craft techniques and, what is, 19th century, 18th century. And I realized then the value of craft and how, and the value of heritage. They were so proud of their craft and identity and heritage. And, it stuck in my head. And I started to work also with like creating, I got pregnant with my first son. And I was like, okay, I want to get some nice furniture, but everything looked so antique. So I designed a kid's, bedroom set. And I used the craft of marquetry, but in a contemporary way. And then some of my friends are like, oh, we love this. It's really beautiful. So I started to make furniture for everybody in London that I knew that were ready to have babies or kids. And I became known to do kids' furniture. And so that was a very interesting time.
And is this with the Arab community, Nada, or is this with a wider group? Because the Arab community is very good about word of mouth in London, but is that who you were with? Yeah.
Definitely the Arab community. Then I had then I did a show. I created a collection, so I did some shows, and then it extended to like a bit of foreign community where they were very interested, but mainly it was Middle Eastern. But then I published a few articles and,
And so the UK part of your life was what, 3-4 years, 5 years?
No, it was 7 years.
7 years.
I spent a good 7 years. And then, my relationship with my husband kind of started to deteriorate. And
by this point you had 2 boys, right, Nada?
By this point I had 2 boys who were 4 and 6. And my ex-husband had moved to Beirut. And I decided that I will take the kids to see their father in Beirut, but not knowing that the jurisdiction of Lebanon takes over the jurisdiction of the UK. So to make the long story short, I ended up in Beirut. My ex-husband ended up having the kids, and I ended up on my own in Beirut.
Right.
So
the children stayed with him. The children stayed with him.
So the children stayed with him. They were 4 and 6. And this was like a very, very difficult time for me.
I'm sure it was.
I mean,
I'm sure.
Like, because it was completely unexpected. The idea was the kids will grow up in London. They will go to I had it all planned.
You had a plan.
They say, like God plan. You plan and God laughs.
God decides.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I had planned that they go to the American School of London. Then they go to Imperial College. And we're gonna stay in this place. And
you had it mapped out.
I had it all planned.
Yeah.
I had it all mapped out. And in one instance, everything just fell apart. And so this was
this is a huge moment in your life of change, unexpected change.
Completely, because I thought that I thought I meant well, for the kid. I didn't know about anything about this part of the world. And I also think, if I look even one step back, when you say things like when you're young, like I don't want to live in the Arab world, or I hate it, or this things like that, it haunts you later in life. They
Yeah,
say beware of what you ask for or what you
absolutely.
say.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I think this was one of these things where God put me to a test. I mean, the universe put me to a test, and they're like, okay, you said you didn't want the Arab world. Here you are.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I could have left the country. And gone back to London, but it didn't make sense anymore. So I decided that I will be there to see the kids over the weekend. Yeah, on the weekend. But it was a big, big, big shock because um, once you become a mother, I think you can't take that away. I mean, it's like these kids go through your body. So, you know, like there's a connection.
Of
And so
course.
the connection was cut.
Yeah.
And this, like, I underestimated motherhood. Like today, I realize how important it is. But I spent many years denying it. I was like, I don't understand these people who think motherhood is so important. Look at me, I can live without kids. But
Mm,
that wasn't
mm,
the
mm,
truth.
mm.
I think I was not admitting the truth.
Of course.
I
I
was,
think it was
yeah,
just too
but
difficult to admit. I mean, it's pretty
yeah,
horrific being, denied your children. So it's a very difficult,
yeah,
but I'm in strong admiration of you that you stayed there in order to be near them, even though it was a difficult situation. And
it was so
it's a
tough.
mother, but it's a mother's instinct, isn't it? You're saying you're a bad mother. On the contrary, that's a typical thing any mother would do.
Yeah. So
Um,
I thought so my grandmother was 85 at the time. So my grandmother who had passed away, and she was like, Nada, look, because she had the ability to see long term. Like she's 85 years old. She was born in 1918, so she's seen it all. And she says, Nada, look, don't worry. The kids, with a blink of an eye, you're going to wake up and suddenly see them grown up, and they're going to be coming to you with pleasure. And
Absolutely.
so she said, just go work, have fun, travel, enjoy life.
Yeah,
And I'm like, how can you tell me this?
yeah,
How can you tell me this?
yeah.
She goes, just don't say no to parties. Like she just loved life. Just go. And then she goes, you got a degree, go and work. So I remember like 6 months every day, because I didn't know many people in Beirut. Most of my friends from the AUB days were uh, not around, or I just needed space. It was a very difficult time. I would just go swimming and come back and spend the day on my own. And I started to ask this very simple question: what will make me happy? It was so simple. What will bring a smile to my face?
How old were you,
And
Nada, then? At this point in your
I
life,
was
what age were you?
38,
38. Okay.
38.
Right.
Yeah. And every single day I would ask that question. And every single day I don't have an answer. And then after maybe 6 months, I had this vision, which was very strange. I think I was swimming, probably while I'm swimming. I had this vision of myself. And, at that time, I was a very dependent wife. So I never had my own mobile or my own computer. I always used my husband's, because I don't know, I was just a nice, loyal wife. And uh, so I remember in this vision, I saw myself with a computer, a laptop, flying to Paris. And I was showing a client a design. I closed my computer. Then I saw myself flying to New York City, opening my computer and showing a design. And then I somehow woke up from this dream.
How funny,
Okay.
Nada. So
And
you
it
saw
just
it all mapped
disappeared.
out in front of you.
I saw it mapped out.
Yeah,
And then I'm like, but if you saw the situation I was in, I'm so far from that
yeah,
image,
yeah, yeah,
Like, what is this dream telling me
yeah.
about? But 1 week later, I had the royal family, someone from the royal family of Jordan, contacting me. They saw my children's furniture in Beirut, in London. And they're like, it was Princess Rida Salam. I don't know if you know her,
Mhm.
Rida Talal. She had told me when I met her in London, I had done some furniture for her sister's children. And she told me, Nada, when I get pregnant, I'm going to contact you. And
And she
lo
did.
and behold, she contacted me 1 week after this vision. And
So
I was like so excited.
you had a prestigious benefactor launching
And
your career
immediately,
in Lebanon.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people in Beirut started to ask, wait, who's Nada Debs? She's doing something for the royal family. And also the house that I was doing it was designed by a Lebanese designer named Harmouche, and all prestigious people. And so I was being introduced to this world, and I had no idea. Uh, you know, I had no, I knew people who knew everybody, but so all of a sudden everyone's like, who is Nada Debs? And so I started to become known for
Yeah.
children's furniture,
Yeah.
and then word of mouth. And one day, and then somehow it hit me that this is something I really love. And I was thinking, okay, I don't have a chance to bring up my kids, but okay, this becomes my sensitive moment because I can't even say it 20 years later. But this is the time where I say, if I can't bring up the kids, maybe I can use my time for something they can be proud of. Like, I didn't waste my time. And I think this was so much in my subconscious that I had this drive. I was like a bulldozer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would start early morning, and I was like, designing this, designing that, going to the factory, coming back. Bless you.
Thank you.
Coming back, traveling, and it was
So your
a
energy, all
very
your energy went into this. Yeah.
all my energy
Yeah.
went into that. I sometimes even forgot that I had kids. Like, I completely forgot. It just became such a
Yeah.
drive. My
Yeah.
family was upset with me. They're like, "What? Where are you? We're not able to talk to you." And I realized that, when you're a mother, you want to give a lot of love, and when you don't have an outlet, you need an outlet. Like, so it has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, in a way, my work became like a third child.
What do you get, Nada, in terms of as a creative person? What do you get? What does it mean for you to do these collaborations with these different brands? Because they're so different. The brands you've worked with. You've worked with Jotun, the color specialists. Converse sneakers, Fratelli Rossetti, beautiful Italian shoes, IKEA. They're all very different. But what do you get out of it in terms of you know, how does it?
Yeah.
What does it matter to you?
Yeah. So today, like, for example, when people say, okay, you make furniture and home accessories, I actually say, no, I'm not just making that. I'm actually I make a message, and the message is about finding something that's very different and finding a common element to it. So, for example, the Japanese and Arab cultures, a lot of people see both in the same piece that I make, or an old technique versus a new technique, modern materials versus old materials. And so with brands, here's IKEA that works on democratic design, and basically I do more like crafted high-end luxury product. How can I actually take you know my philosophy and work with IKEA? So this challenge of bringing opposites or something so different and finding a common element is something that I love to do, and that's what I like about what my work. It's not really about making furniture. It's more about sending that message out. So the more collaborations I do, the more uh, I'm challenged.
In a way, Nada, it's another take on the duality of identity that we talked about earlier. Rather
I
than look
think
at
so.
the
Yes.
difference of, cultures, you're actually just bringing together different corporate cultures in a way and seeing how they can mesh, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I,
it.
I wanted to ask you your thoughts on what's happening with the hereditary craftsmanship of the region and the devastation in Syria. How has that impacted your industry? Is there a new breed, a new generation of craftsmen like there have been for hundreds of years that have passed from generation to generation. You're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis with your
Yeah.
work. Do you feel that there is still this industry or this cottage industry, if you like? Is it still prevalent? Is it in jeopardy? What are your thoughts on that? Because it's very much a symbol of who we are, predominantly in the Levant, much more than where I am in Egypt, but in Egypt as well. But the
No, in
Levant
Egypt
is,
too. Yeah.
yeah, but the Levant is known for it. You know, the textiles and the mother of pearl and the intricacy of the production. What are your thoughts on what's going to happen in the future in the industry?
So this is like something that I really, really care about. I mean, it's such a good question that you're asking me. So when I started to do this furniture, again, I was so not aware of what I was doing, but it created a kind of ripple effect. I call this work Neo-Arabian because when you think of it, Middle Eastern, when I came to Beirut 20 years ago and I saw the furniture, what is furniture made in Lebanon? There was nothing. It was really the furniture that's made in Damascus for the Ottoman, Empire and the Ottoman sultans. And that was stuck 200 years ago, and people were still making the same things. No one dared to touch that craft. And here I come with completely no emotional attachment. And I'm like, why is it so, decorative? Keep it simple. Can you do me a line of diamonds in mother of pearl? And this created this new look. And then I kept the form very simple. So the form represents who we are. We're modern in our clothing and the way we look, but we're intrinsically Arab. And I thought by creating contemporary forms, but keeping the craft, that's really the same, that reflects who we are today. And when I started to do this, I didn't realize that so many people were like, I gave permission to these craftsmen. Like, it's okay to not do the old stuff. It's okay to actually come up with a new, like change the old ways. And it created a ripple effect. And today, like you can go to Damascus and any workshop and they have pictures downloaded from my website. They're making furniture that looks like similar to mine. For me, at the beginning, it was like a bit offending, but then today I say, wow, at least they have something new to work on.
Yeah, and it's flattering.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is flattering. I mean, the thing is, I'm always challenged with the more they imitate, the more I'm challenged with new ways of creating.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like I have a very I've worked with many craftsmen, but one Syrian family, they know the way I think. So they keep sending me new ideas also. They're like, now we know what you think. What do you think of this technique? And what do you think of that technique? And then I take it, they still have that little traditional edge. And I take the technique and I start coming up with new ways of making. And so I'm not worried about the future. But for me, what I feel today is that I would like to use my name in order to promote this idea that craft and heritage is so important for us. Keeping our identity, it's so important. It's like Hermes, for example, for France. It's all about craftsmanship and heritage, and they only work with their own people. They don't make their things in China, I don't think. I think, and this is the way I want to approach. Like, we need to look at how proud we should be of what we are. When I first came to Beirut, nobody wanted anything made in the Arab world. They were like, looked down at it. So I think that I was able to at least revolutionize that